Over the centuries, especially from the 19th to the present, many attempts had been made to reconstruct the secret precinct of Tenochtitlan. Models, maps, and computer recreation had been created. The truth is, we will never have a definitive recreation of this ceremonial center, which, according to the Friar Bernardino de Sahagun, contained a total of 78 constructions. This number seems exaggerated compared to modern recreation made with the evidence available so far. Of course, the construction that stood out above all was the Templo Mayor, or Hueteocalli in Nahuatl. However, whatever the actual number of buildings, after 1521 they were destroyed by war and gradually dismantled. Eventually, the Novo-Hispanic construction covered everything, leaving no trace of previous structures. Each of these buildings deserves its own video, which is why we will talk about the House of the Eagles here. This building remained buried for hundreds of years, under a church and later other constructions. It wasn't until the Templo Mayor was rediscovered that this structure appeared next to it. In some old and modern representations, it does even appear alongside the Templo Mayor as we see here. In others, it doesn't resemble the original structure, which has an L shape. What is important is that its discovery proves its evidence and clarifies many aspects of its functions. Today, it is called the House of the Eagles, but its true name is unknown. This name comes from the architectural aspects and vestige found, as well as the people who used this construction. I am referring to the Eagle Warriors, who were called various names in Nahuatl, such as Cuaupipili, Yaucuautli, or Cuautecatl. Yes, I am referring to those famous warriors who wore helmets imitating the head of an eagle and features on various parts of their bodies. Thanks to them, this building received the name House of the Eagles. As this was the precinct of these warriors. Its name also derives from one of these two main entrances, which feature eagles' heads embedded in the construction. The building followed the classic construction style of many cultures of that time, whereas the city grew. They would span their buildings one on top of another. The House of the Eagles is an example of this. In its humble beginnings, there would have been only small islands with no buildings. However, at some point, the first precinct to these warriors was created. Evidence shows that the building had three expansions between 1430 and 1500 AD. Beneath the face we can visit today, remnants of a smaller building had been found. Small windows were opened at one time to reveal the existence of this earlier, smaller face. However, only the platform of the last phase remains because the upper half of the building was destroyed after the defeat by the Spanish and their allies. The remains of the last phase are beneath Justo Sierra Street and the Colonial Building, where the Porrua bookstore is now located. At its height, the building would have looked like this. The face we see here is the second one, which has an access stairway facing east and another on the north wing, with an access stairway on the southern end. This face is estimated to have been built around 1470 AD. This was the precinct of the Eagle Warriors. from which much information has been extracted. This visible face shows Toltec construction inspiration with these warrior carvings, similar to carvings still found in the archaeological zone of Tula, Hidalgo. They made many benches, with this style depicting various warriors in procession, and in the center a carved hay bowl called Sakatapayoli, where the warriors place the thorns they used to blend parts of their bodies. Of course, the eagle warriors would sit on these benches to confer or perform ceremonies. The building would have been covered with white stucco, and various paintings would have adorned it. And in the ground, thanks to the porosity of the stucco, remnants of various substances were stored. In some areas, concentration of blood were found, especially near braziers that were discovered. These are evidence of the shelf sacrifices performed by the warriors. Additionally, there is evidence of maguey thorns used to pierce parts of the body to draw blood and offer it. Remnants of oils, fat, and various resins have also been found. Even traces of what is presumed to be pulque. These substances were likely placed in braziers or incense burners and used to purify themselves their objects of worship, and the building itself to sanctify it. These images show different densities of such substances, proving that many substances were poured inside, primarily for ceremonial purposes related to the warriors. As mentioned, the building underwent 3 expansions. Before the 3rd expansion, they symbolically shield it with mud and other materials from Lake Texcoco to mark the end of its functions. During this practice, many objects were buried, allowing them to survive through time and be seen today. Among the most remarkable findings are 4 life-size statues. Two of Mictlan and 2 of eagle warriors. Originally, these statues were painted, although only traces of their paint and stucco remain. The 2 Mictlan statues were located at the northern entrance of the precinct, which makes sense, since the Mexicas believed that Mictlan was to the north. The 2 eagle warriors statues were found on the eastern staircase, facing the direction where the sun sets. The sun was often represented as an eagle, linking the eagle warrior to the sun. If we think these statues were found intact, we are mistaken, as they had to be reconstructed like a puzzle. They were not discovered whole. Various offerings were also found, including vessels shaped like Tlaloc, figures of Xiuhtecuhtli, shells, jars, and more. As a whole, the precinct and these pieces confirm indirect information about some on the rites performed by the Mexicas. With the arrival of Europeans, codices continued to be created, but with techniques from that continent. Some of these confirm the findings related to the House of the Eagles. These codices verify rituals involving resins such as copal and others used in braziers or incense burners. They also confirm practices of self-sacrifice like those observed here, where, after piercing themselves, they would place the maguey thorns in a bowl near the building's braziers. There were also images of large statues where blood was poured over them, a situation confirmed when studying the statues of Mictlan and the Eagle Warriors, as blood remnants were found from the head downwards, indicating it was poured from above. Many ceremonies conducted in this location were performed by the Mexica Tlatoani. Only elite Tenochca characters participated, with the space being forbidden to most of the population. Nonetheless, these remains prove the existence of this exclusive use building for Eagle Warriors, some of its symbolism. And its ritual practices that survive despite the destruction of the great Tenochtitlan.